Welcome to Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome into Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Welcome back, my friends. Welcome home. Every time you hit play on this podcast, you allow me into your space, into your morning, your ride, your quiet moment. And I never take that for granted. I'm grateful for each and every one of you walking this journey with me. You know, life has a way of circling us back to what truly matters. We get caught up in the rush, in the noise, in the chaos of trying to hold everything together. But then someone comes along with a message that stops you, centers you, and reminds you that the heart of our lives is found in the people we love and the children we raise. Today, I'm honored, genuinely honored, to be sitting down with someone who lives that message every single day. Someone has made it her mission to remind parents that, yes, you can raise strong, responsible, emotionally grounded children, and you can do it with love at the center. Martha Burich isn't just an author. She's a coach, a teacher, a guide, and someone who has dedicated her life to helping families reconnect with their purpose, their values, and their truth. She has spent years walking beside parents and children through their challenges, the breakthroughs, and the moments that test who we are. Her book, Yes, You Can, Raise Happy, Responsible Children, isn't just a book. It's a lifeline. It's a reminder that parenting isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up with intention, with patience, and with the courage to look within. It teaches us that our mindset, our beliefs, our energy, they ripple through our homes and shape the lives of the young souls watching us. And today, we get to hear from the heart behind that work. We get to talk about healing, responsibility, mindset, and the kind of love that builds families up instead of breaking them down. So take a deep breath with me. Settle in, open your heart, because this is going to be a conversation filled with wisdom, compassion, and truth. Ladies and gentlemen, I am humbled and proud to welcome this incredible, inspiring, and empowering woman, Martha Burich. Martha, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, Jimmy. I really appreciate the introduction. And you know what? I want to start with, I was an unwanted child. And somehow, before we got on the show, this has been going through my mind. My father, when I was 20, decided to tell me that. And I really don't know why he would do that. You know, he said to me, your mother didn't want you. And I had kind of already known that. But what he forgot to say when he said that was the reason she didn't want me was because there was no food in the house because my dad drank and gambled all the money away. So he forgot to tell me that part. And it's not that she didn't love me, because she did, but she was so concerned. She already had 2 children. She didn't know how she was going to feed them. And why do I bring this up? I bring this up because as parents, you know what? And I meet with people who have addiction and alcohol problems all the time, every week, almost every day. And because we're stuck in our addictions and our selfishness, we forget that our children are our responsibility and that they come first. And it's really sad because, I heard one man just say last week how he had gone through all his children's college funds for his drugs. And, and another one had said that he was in the same thing. He never spent any time with his children, and sometimes there was no food because his drugs and alcohol were were more important to him. And I understand that when you're in addiction, but we're grown up now, and it's time for us to get control of ourselves, because now we have other people who depend on us. Even if it's our dogs and cats and our animals, they depend on us and they need us to be clear-minded. And especially, at this season, Jimmy, this is the time to start thinking, what can I do now to start really living my life? Because when we're stuck in drugs and alcohol, we're not really living our lives. I don't know why that came out of my mouth, but somebody needed to hear it. So there we are.
Well, that's huge there, with your dad telling you that when you're 20, and, it's probably a gut shot to hear, a gut punch to hear that, because, no parent should, be saying that to any child, or young adult, because, I'm the reason for Uncle Jimmy's podcast. I got no kids, so no kids for me, but I've been in some relationships with people that have kids, and, parenting is one of the hardest things, but it's also one of the most rewarding things if you do it right and you do it correct, and the kids come first. That's one of the big messages there. The kids come first. And, that's remarkable hearing that, a few little things that you had mentioned, that, some of the parents had gone through their children's college funds because they're active in addiction and alcohol and gambling. And I know you do a lot. I had read that you do a lot with the prisons. I know you visit the prisons. And, it seems like you're one that's, looked in the mirror, taken some stock in your life, and you know what you want to do. And, you've turned your pain into purpose by helping out and giving back, not only to children and families, but also to those that are incarcerated, to those that are active in addiction. And, we applaud you for that and we appreciate that. We need more women like you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And you know what? That's benefited me. How do you get out of yourself? You help someone else.
Yeah.
So that's really, really benefited me, and that's helped me learn so much. I was at another meeting, and I really want to say this to parents. If you're not planning to win, you're planning to fail. I want you to start, it's time for all of us to start thinking, what is it that I want from my family life? What do I want for my children? And let me tell you this, Jimmy, I have the philosophy. It's called the 3 L's of parenting and really life. Love them and yourself enough to say no. People who don't accept no for an answer are very unpleasant, but they also become their own worst enemy because they become addicts and alcoholics. They overeat, they don't exercise, they have poor health, et cetera, et cetera. So if you don't learn to say no to yourself and to say no to your children, you're doing a disservice to everyone. Lead by example. I can't say, don't smile, so be the example you want to see
Yeah.
and let them fail. Too many parents want to keep their children from feeling disappointment. Disappointment is a cornerstone of life because if we don't experience disappointment, we don't know how to get over it and we don't know how to make things better. So this is how you get a lot of adult children who are just constantly whining and crying and they're clueless. They're like, well, I can't make it better. Oh, well, I don't know what to do. Well, guess what? If you'd have failed a few times and your parents let you, like by not doing your homework, by not, almost totally doing your science experiment and projects, etc., then you would have that strength. And let me give you one more example. Okay, let's say a third grader comes home from school. Guess what? They're having a play. They're having a play. I'm going to try out to be the lead. Well, honey, I'm glad there's a play, but ooh, the lead. Oh, you might not get it. Why don't you try out to be a tree? They have about 10 trees, and you'll probably get that one. And see right there, what do we teach our children? To not go after what they really want, to go after what they think they can get. So then you get people who get in relationships they really don't want, but that they get who they think they can get in jobs they really don't. Well, I think I can get this job. No, what we have to do is go for what we really want. Stumble, fall, fail, 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 and get up, get up, get up.
Yeah. I think that's that saying of, if you fall 9 times and you get back up, at 10 times, you're ahead of the game, you're doing great. In life, that's one of the biggest things, like you said. Unfortunately, that's a side of life. You're going to fail, whether it's in personal life, whether it's in, business, whether it's in school, you say you want to get the honor roll, you get a C and you're upset, but it's failures that lead to the cornerstones and the building blocks of you becoming a productive adult. Because like you said, if you're there and you're just not letting your kids feel and always telling them they're perfect and, it's okay, we'll get through it, and you don't teach them those lessons, then they're going to grow up, spoiled little adults, very similar to the man we have in the White House right now, who's never been told no in his life. That's a prime example right there.
And also, in parenting. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the book I wrote, Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children. I wrote that because my own son was very spoiled at 4. He did not take no for an answer because we thought the way you raise a happy child is you don't say no.
Yeah.
And we were wrong, Jimmy. Let me tell you.
And you probably did that. You probably did that to compensate for when you were a child. The things that you didn't get, you always wanted to give to your child.
Right, exactly. And that's what a lot of parents do. I don't want my child to suffer the way I did. I don't want my child to have to work the way I did. Well, those are all the things that develop character.
Yeah.
So we're denying our children their right to develop their character, to learn how to deal with disappointment, to learn how to deal with when things don't go right. And a lot of times what happens is people just give up. I just talked to a woman who said that she was so depressed for years. She never left her home for years.
Wow.
Why? Why? Because she wasn't taught that, you know what? When you're depressed, what's the best thing to do? Go find somebody to help. Go to the dog shelter, go to the nursing home, go somewhere where something needs your help. But see, we're not taught. I don't know why we're not taught that and encouraged to do that when we're children, that to look outside ourselves. If you think that you're not liked at school, then you need to go and find the lonely child and say, and be their friend. You be the one, you be the leader. Stop looking to be accepted. And how many times do we find children who are accepted find themselves doing things that they really shouldn't because they want to be accepted?
Accepted.
They'll do anything to be accepted. And then here we have more problems. This is where drugs and alcohol a lot of times come in when kids are young. They want to be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they wanna run with the group and run with the wrong kids and do the wrong things, and, I was very lucky enough, I was able to, go to Catholic school, private Catholic school my whole life where, my
Mm.
parents and my grandparents raised us basically to, live in the service of others, So always giving back, whether it's at home or whether it's in the community or to your neighbors, and always doing it with, gratitude and a heart full of love. I was very lucky enough to have the, grandparents that I did, and my mom and dad who are no longer with us, but and my mom and dad at one point there was 7 of us, 7 kids, and then, excuse me, my mom and dad, so there was 9 of us in a house.
Oh.
We never went without a meal. We never went without clothes. I always had a roof over our head. And it's small things, that you take for granted. One of the biggest things for me is not having mom and dad around anymore. My dad's been gone almost 16 years. My mom three or 4 years, I think. Being able, as you get older and you grow, to appreciate and see that all that my parents did for myself and my siblings was out of love, and I don't know how they did it, because there was so many of us, but just to be able to, I wish they were here so I could thank them for the unbelievable upbringing that I was given.
Wow. Well, we do kind of realize that a little too late, don't we, Jimmy?
We do.
But it takes age and wisdom to realize because we're going through the growing stages when we're younger and learning how to deal with the world and everything else. And our parents are just kind of in the background. Oh, that's just my mom, that's just my dad, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And we don't realize how very, very important and valuable they are until we get some hindsight. And in fact, it was Mark Twain that said, when I was 15, I thought my father was the most ignorant man on the face of the earth. And when I turned 21, I was amazed at how much he'd learned in 6 years.
That's awesome. So you were a school teacher as well, right?
Yes, 16 years as a high school special education teacher. I taught math and science, and that was a really, really good time. I really saw the gamut of abilities and different abilities in children and how to handle those. And, what I found, Jimmy, is that most people just want to be acknowledged. And I remember one time a student was on the football team, and he came to me one day and he goes, I don't know what's worse when the coach ignores me or when he yells at me. And what he was pretty much telling me is that just being acknowledged is so important. And really, a lot of times people would do anything just to be noticed so that they'll behave in any way just to be noticed, good or bad, because being ignored is really absolutely the worst thing. That's why shunning is such a terrible punishment for people. And being in isolation. One of the girls at the jail, I remember she told me she was put in isolation for 10 days with just her Bible. And when she came out, she told me all about it. And I said, it's really a testament to your strength that you came out in one piece and mentally capable
Yeah.
still, because being isolated like that's very tough.
Yeah, that's almost, in prison in general, that's almost one of the most cruel and inhumane punishments you can do is having someone sit in that cold jail cell by themselves, whether it's 10 days, 20 days, because you don't realize with no human contact and no human interaction or conversation, it can take a toll on you mentally. And that's what people, I think, don't realize when it comes to people with depression and anxiety that they often do. They're a shell of themselves and they keep to themselves.
Hmm.
I suffer myself from depression and anxiety, and one of my tipping points in when people realize that I'm not okay is when I isolate. When I tend to just want to be by myself, and that's one of the big things of the podcast was getting people on to share their stories, share their journeys in life. And it seems like you've done a little bit of everything. From writing a book, being an author, being a special education teacher in high school, and you've done a lot of great things. So you ready for some questions?
Always.
Perfect. So what was the personal moment, the turning point that made you say, I have to write this book now?
Oh, that's really interesting. It was when I was a substitute teacher. I wrote the book decades ago and put it in a drawer.
Okay.
And it's when I was a substitute teacher, and I thought, you know what? People really need to know this information. And let me tell you a quick story from my subbing days. I subbed a fourth grade class one day and I was really concerned. I thought, well, I don't know if this really went well. At the end of the day, I think I was sitting at my desk with my hands, I had in my hands, kind of looking concerned. And one of the children said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Oh, I'm just very concerned whether or not I've been a good teacher for you today and whether this has been good for you." And those children were so sweet. They said, "Oh my goodness, you're such a good substitute teacher. You listened to what we had to say and and they were just telling me all these good things about myself and that really, really helped me that day to realize people want to give feedback and they want to be useful. Fourth grade, kindergarten,
Yeah, I was
3 years
gonna
old.
say at such a young age,
Yes, yes.
you
You
know?
know what? If you have a young child, a 2-year-old, give them a 2-year-old size broom. Let them start working. I just watched a video. A woman was letting her 4-year-old, not even 4, make a recipe because she had made pictures of every single step
Yeah.
of how to do this recipe. And the child had a bowl in front of her, was doing everything, breaking the eggs, stirring, everything, because she had the pictures and could follow the instructions step by step, just like we do with a recipe. So don't discount because of your child's age. Think about how much you can let them do themselves.
Yeah. No, and as a school teacher, you said, 4th grade, my ex-wife is a school teacher. One of the things I would always instill in her is that you are shaping and molding the next generation of America, and it takes a unique type of person to be able to do that. Teachers, they're sometimes the most least paid,
Mhm.
overworked, they a lot of them have to pay for supplies out of their own pocket, but I never once heard my ex-wife complain about having to, buy stuff out of her, pay for stuff out of her own pocket. And she always went into school with a smile on her face and loved the experience of teaching the kids.
That's great. And the book, even though it's Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children, every teacher that's read it, in fact, it's rated 5 stars on Amazon and endorsed by Jack Canfield of Chicken Soup for the Soul.
The
And
soul,
so,
yeah.
but anyway, every teacher who's read it said, "This has really helped me to communicate with the kids to get better behavior from the children." So it's not just a book for parents, it's just for teachers also.
Teachers also. That's awesome. So your book focuses on raising happy, responsible children. How do you define responsibility in a world that's changing so fast?
Boy, that's a really good point. Well, family is the foundation of society. A well-run, happy family will create that in the environment around it. So, I'm going to give a tip right now. At meal times, do not discipline, do not bring up negative things at mealtime. When the family's together, it should be for fun to discuss how things went, but don't tell the child, "Oh my goodness, your report card, this, your teacher told me this, or I saw you did this," or whatever. That's for another time. That's for you to make an appointment with the child and say, "We need to talk and sit down and talk about this." But meals should be fun time, should be a good time for the family just to be together and enjoy each other. So make meals positive always. When you have to correct a child, make that for another time. That's a really important tip to help the family function. And how do you make them responsible? Do not do for children what they can do for themselves. Back when I was pregnant, there was a man, I was still in college, and a man in one of my classes said, "I'm going to give you some advice and I hope you take it. Never do for your child what he can do for himself. You're robbing him." And that is excellent advice. As much as your child can have, a 6-month old can put a dish in the sink if you hold them over the sink, and a little 5-year-old, if you have a little stepladder and they can help you wash dishes, etc., dry dishes, let the child be as useful as possible. And everybody cleans the house, not just mom and dad, not just the girls in the house. Everybody has a chore, on Saturday or whenever you clean the house. Everybody, before you go to bed, everything should be all cleaned up. There should be a nighttime ritual when you have young ones so that they get ready to go to bed because the parents should have time to themselves before they go to bed. So there should be at least an hour of time to themselves.
No, and that's huge. One of the things that you said, and it brings almost a tear to my eye, is you know, no discipline at the table at supper time. Because when I was a kid, there was, that was always like the best day, best time to look forward to because mom and dad would be home, dad would be home from work, and all the kids would be around the table, and we would be able to express ourselves and be ourselves. But there was no discipline at the table. It was always fun and laughs, and it brings me back because I think as a society, we've sort of lost that, the families coming together. I think it's tough because a lot of times now with the economy being the way it is, and it's not just recent, it's been over the last couple of years where it's actually forced both parents to go out and work and having to be out of the home when children get home from school. So it leads to a lot of mischief and, it's tough. It's tough. But that just brought a little tear to my eye thinking about the, dinner table with dad and mom there and me and my siblings and always having fun, always laughs, and if we weren't having dinner at home, we would be having it at grandma and grandpa's. And my grandfather was we like to say a line cook because whatever you wanted, he would cook. Sometimes it'd be 10 different meals he'd be serving, and that was the type of man that he was. It was very special.
That's nice. But
So
I'm gonna say right now, parents, don't do that. Don't do what grandpa did. You have a meal, you say, "This is what we're eating today. If you don't like it, there's peanut butter and jelly."
yeah,
Whatever. I take what you like to eat into account, but I'm not making 2 and 3 different meals.
it- yeah.
And that's
Sometimes grandpa would be making 10 different meals. It was crazy. But so what surprised you the most while writing this book about parents, about kids, or even about yourself?
that we all have to step in our own doggy do. And you know how you'd be walking with someone, they'll go, "Watch out for that dog do," and you'll be like, "What dog do?" Splat. So people can tell us, my mother used to always give me a lot of advice, most of which I never listened to. And had I listened to her, things would have worked out a lot better, a lot quicker, a lot faster, but, we all have our own path.
Yeah,
So for whatever reason, we have to do what we have to do, but take advice. Oh, and I think this is a good point too. No matter what you do, you're wrong. Let's just face it. No matter what we do, somebody's going to say we're wrong,
yeah,
okay? So when they do that, don't be defensive. If someone says you're a lousy mother, a lousy father, whatever, say, "Oh, that's very interesting. Why do you say that?" And then let them give reasons, because oftentimes the reasons that we think are completely wrong. And I'll give you an example. Someone told a woman, "You're a lousy mother." And she's like, "Oh, that's interesting. Why do you say that?" "You don't let your children eat sugar." You know? So you're thinking, "Oh my god, I don't give them enough attention. I blah, 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 blah." You don't let them eat sugar, or you let them eat too much sugar, or whatever.
yeah,
And you just simply say, "Well, thank you. I really appreciate the feedback.
yeah.
Gives me something to think of." And then that's it. That's the end. Don't be defensive. Just move on.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things you said was, it's okay, and you are going to step in your own doo doo, but step in it, learn from it, grow from it, and be the best parent that you can. So, if a parent could walk away with only one message from your book, what would you want that to be?
You know what? Stop saying if. Stop bribing your children. Stop begging them to behave. No, there's no if. There's this needs to be done. As soon as you complete your homework, then you can watch TV. That's the number one tip. And so use as soon as. That's grandma's rule. Magic words. And sometimes you can't help but use if, but don't use it as a bribe. Sometimes it's like, if the sun shines, then we can go outside. You know what I mean? That's if, right? But otherwise, when it comes to you, and also if you're going to say no to your child, think about it first. Because if you're going to change it to yes, you're messing everything up and you're making your life more difficult and the child's. Because then when you finally do learn to say no, they're going to be screaming and crying and going on for hours. They're kind of just like our animals are the same way. So, yeah.
Yeah, so almost stand on your 2 feet when you say no. No means no.
Yeah, no means no. So really think it through.
Yeah, and don't confuse them with the, no, and then tell them yes 10 minutes later because you're only confusing the child.
That's right. Yes.
So how much of your book is rooted in your professional experience and how much comes from your own personal journey and growth?
Well, it's all from my personal journey and my professional I mean, it's all from this is not theory. There is not a speck of theory in this book. It is all tried and true. Everything I tell you in that book, I tried myself. I've tried it at school. I've tried it at the jail. I've tried it everywhere, and it works
Yeah.
with adults, with children, even with my animal. And I'll give you a quick example with the dog. I was sitting down to eat my lunch, and the dog had his paws up on the kitchen counter. And I said, "Get down." And he looked at me, and I could see him thinking, "I know you're not getting up. You're eating lunch, so I'm not getting down." I could see it. So, if you're going to say something, you can't just yell across the room, "Get down, stop, whatever." You have to get up.
Yeah.
Don't be mean or ignorant, but you have to get up. Get down and get right in front of their face. Get down. Stop running, walk, and tell them what to do.
But
Because if you don't get up, the kid's like, he's not going to do anything. She's not going to do anything.
so next we're going to move on to mindset, behavior, and emotional health. So you talk a lot about mindset. What limiting beliefs do you see most often in parents that unintentionally shape their children?
Oh, the fear of what other people think.
Yeah.
That is gigantic. I remember, I saw a post, a woman, she was sending her 3-year-old to preschool and did not wanna send they had regional dishes that they normally ate. Didn't wanna send those because she was afraid the child would be singled out or isolated. The children would make fun of her or whatever because of the food she eats. So, her main concern was whether her child was going to be accepted socially.
Yeah.
And parents, I remember being concerned about that when I was younger and my son, and rather than thinking, "Wait a minute, Martha, that should not be your main concern." The main concern should be like, do those people have good character? Are those people I wanna be around? What difference does it make? Jimmy, every time when you talk about really successful people, most of the time they will say they were the outcasts at school or they were isolated, they did not have a lot of friends. And, oftentimes, they were C students. So, a lot of the things that we think that are negatives are actually the positives.
Yeah.
So, yes, be very wary whenever you're concerned about you don't do something because you're worried what someone else will say.
What someone else will say, yeah. So, in your experience, what's the biggest emotional hurdle modern families are facing today?
Goodness. I think, you know what? There's so much fake everything now. Everything's fake. Every
Everything.
commercial you see, everything, they're not even real people. It's all AI, AI. So the biggest emotional hurdle is, well, we already talked about wanting to be liked and not realizing that what's really important is who am I as a human being? Am I a good human being? Do I have morals and ethics? When I say I'm going to do something, will I do it? Which is very, very important.
Yeah,
If you give your word and you break it, that's a pretty big deal, and it keeps people from being able to trust you. If you say you're gonna be there at 1 o'clock, be there at 1 o'clock.
yeah, yeah,
So, yes, that's very important to be able to be trustworthy and to realize that other people need you to do the right thing. So, do the right thing because it helps society, it helps you, it helps your family.
yeah. No, that's huge. So, how can parents break generational cycles when they weren't given healthy examples themselves?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, well, read books like mine. Yes, you can raise happy, responsible children. Read books that have information in them. Read the good, all the classics. The classic, like, well, War and Peace is pretty hard to get through, but a lot of the old classic books have good, and the old therapists and things. Carl Jung and
Carl
stuff
Jung,
like
yeah,
that. So just look around, go to YouTube, and see information from there.
yeah,
So there's so much information everywhere that you can find good information. And look up successful people and find out how they were raised, what their parents did.
perfect. So, what mistakes do you see parents being too hard on themselves for? And what should they forgive themselves for
Oh.
today?
Well, yesterday's past. So whatever you did yesterday, you're going to have to forgive yourself. If you need to make restitution or whatever, find a way to do that, but it doesn't have to be done this minute. Just decide, you know what, I'm going to be the best parent, human being I can today. Because the seed of tomorrow, the tree of tomorrow comes from the seeds planted today. Start planting the right seeds. If you don't like who you were yesterday, it's time to change today. So if you think you're drinking and drugging too much or anything like that, then you need to start figuring out how am I going to do about it? How can I stop this from controlling my life? If you're spending money too much, you need to start making a plan. So make a plan to do better, but just worry about today. Yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not here. You just do your best today, and everything will work out.
Yeah.
Usually does.
So, in today's digital world, how can parents protect their children's emotional resilience without sheltering them from life?
Right? You know what? You need to know everything that's on that child's phone. There's too much going on with too many, Discord and everything else. Children have access, and most of the children can get around parental control so easy. Your child should never be alone in their room with a computer, a phone, a device, ever.
Yep.
They need to be in a public place where everybody can see what they're doing and who they're talking to. And you should always have total access to your child's phone up until I think the age of 15, for sure, 16. And then even then, you need to really think about who they're talking to, and also make sure you meet all of your child's friends
Yeah,
somehow, some way.
yeah, because I think it's tough nowadays with everything. Like you said, Discord. There seems to be a new app popping up every day, and there seems to be um, a lot of predators online. And it's such a world that I'm 41. In growing up, we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't, we knew it was time to come home and dinner time when the street lights came on. And kids nowadays, they have that instant social media, instant internet. I remember we had the dial up when I was a kid to get on the internet. And you were lucky enough if you could get through to get on. So I'm sort of glad I didn't grow up in that side of nowadays because it's definitely different. So what'd you say?
We do live in the brave new world.
Yeah,
Who wrote that book? Was that Orwell? Orwell
Oh,
was 1984. I don't remember who wrote Brave New World, but that's the world we're living
that's the
in.
world we're living in. Yeah. So now we're going to go on to from the classroom in the human side of parenting. So you taught for decades, college, high school, special education. How did those years shape your understanding of child behavior?
That's a good question. Well, you know what? Kid, adults are just big kids.
Yeah.
And we all want to be recognized and acknowledged and appreciated. So, you know, number one, parents, teachers, adults, recognize the positive that you see in people. Don't just acknowledge, don't just say, and even if you're, let's say, a boss at a job, make sure that you're always saying something positive to someone every single day. Because when you do have to correct them, then you can sandwich it in between, I know you do this right. I was concerned that I saw this. What do you think we can do about that? And then end it with another positive. But if you only approach people when you're correcting them, your children will take you out of their quality world. If your only interactions are to correct them and to really pretty much tell them they're wrong and how they need to improve, that's not going to bode well for anybody. So you need to make a point. In fact, every night you should really be telling your children, I love you. I'm so glad you're my child. You do this good, you do that good. And also, parents, I want you to know if you have more than one child, you are going to deal with you love so and so better, you love my sister better, my brother, whatever, whatever. And you're going to hear that till the day you die.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. I always say my mom loved my brother better. And here we are in advanced age, and I still say that.
Still saying.
But I know better. I know that she loved us all the same, but she loved he had certain qualities, I had certain qualities. So she loved us all differently. And then that's, unless you want a robot for a parent, that's exactly what's going to happen. So grow up. And even if your parent, let's say it's really true, your parent loved your siblings better, you're still going to have to grow up and make a life for yourself, aren't you?
Yes, definitely. I was two things, and then we'll move on to the next question. I was lucky enough to I had a ex-girlfriend who had 5 kids, and I was always told this, you can't have a favorite. You can't have a favorite, but you love them, and you love them unconditionally, but there's definitely certain qualities and certain things that you know I do towards one or the other, so. But when it came to, I love you, one of the biggest things was my dad. My dad would always end every conversation that I had with him with, I love you.
My goodness.
And I would always know that, when he did that with all the family members, and I knew when dad was on a work call and when he finished, because you wouldn't hear, I love you. So I would say, oh, that was a work call. And he'd always look at me, how do you know that? I said, because you didn't tell them that you loved them. I knew it wasn't a family member because you didn't. So my dad was always big on that with the I love you after every conversation that I had with him.
Wow.
Even when he was very stern, and he was teaching me a lesson per se that I got in trouble for. And he would always say, this doesn't make you a bad kid, but you have to learn from this. That's an unacceptable behavior, and we don't act like that, and we don't talk like that. But I do want you to know that I love you, and that we just have to change that behavior, So I was very lucky enough with my mom and dad. Were very, very positive and in stewards of positivity and love.
Yes, you were. Good examples.
Yeah,
Very
great examples, So was there a student or family that changed the way you saw parenting or responsibility?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have a student and a parent. Now, let me tell you about the parent first. I had a student and through 9th through 12th grade. When he turned, I think 11th or 12th grade, his brother came into the system, 9th grade. So I go into another teacher's room one time, and the 9th grade brother was in the classroom making mincemeat of this science class. And, not letting the teacher teach, he was Mr. He wanted all the attention. So I went right to the football coach because he played football. And I told the football coach, I said, I hope you're going to take care of this. And he goes, don't you worry, I will. Well, the very next day, those parents were at school, 7 a.m. before I even got there, to tell me to mind my own business. And I said, you know what? Your child's behavior is my business. Your child keeps the other children in that classroom who want to learn from learning. He needs to get control of himself, and he needs to realize that school is a place for learning, not for his attention, not for him to get attention. And the parents were really still aggravated with me, but I knew, that is my job. My job is I'm at school, and my job is to make sure that there's a learning environment, which means it's quiet and teachers can teach and children can learn. So that was with the parents. Then I had a student. Oh my goodness, she was my absolute nemesis. And everybody did whatever she said. The principal said to me, Martha, you're going to have to befriend her. I was like, oh. So, but I did. So I thought, you know what? Okay, I'm going to look for the good. Oh, I would make sure to, welcome her every day and ask her what she really liked. And then I would buy her favorite magazine. Tell me what her favorite magazine was, so I'd buy it for her. And then I would ask her what articles did she read? What did she really like about it? Blah, blah, blah. Well, the next thing you know, she's having lunch with me. She's coming in my room during lunchtime. And just took a couple of months. And then she would say to me, one day she said to me, me and the girls, we all have PE before your science class. And we would all sit around and think about how we could make you mad.
That's
But that stopped, once I befriended her and started seeing the good in her. And see, everybody has good in them. I've never met anybody who's 100% evil, and everybody has good in them. It's for us to find it.
yeah, I did
Always
bring
has.
that out. Yeah, bring that to the
Mhm.
forefront. Yeah.
Right.
It's funny that you say about the kid because, I almost remember having the same conversation when I was in high school of being the funny guy. And I remember my dad having to come to the school, and the big lesson was, and you said it just like I was told, you know, I'm here to learn and the teachers are here to teach. This isn't a comedy night. This isn't the comedy stand where you come in. And that really hit it for me different because what I learned was, and like you had said, was that, I'm taking away from the children from learning, and I didn't think that. I just thought, oh, I'm being funny. And then you get to the point, oh, they're just picking on me because I'm being funny. No, they're not picking on me because it was a private school, very expensive to go to. And when I put it into perspective that, hey, I'm here to learn, not
Mhm.
to be a funny guy, that's when I was able to focus on my studies and not, being the funny guy. So I almost had that same exact conversation that you had. So it's pretty funny. So what did working with teens in special education teach you about patience, compassion, and connection?
Oh, most definitely. Patience, compassion, and connection. And you know what? They're not, we don't say disabilities anymore. They're different abilities. And we have to realize that God made everybody for a reason.
Yeah.
God doesn't make mistakes. So we have to learn, what am I supposed to learn here? How does this, how can I be of benefit here? How is this useful? Because things aren't perfect. I don't know, we have this idea that we all have to be so perfect. I'm going to go back 40 years ago. My brother was in New York. I went to visit him, and we were looking out the window, and there was just a very beautiful woman. She was probably a model walking down the street. And my brother turned to me and he said, those models are the most insecure, unhappy women I've ever met. I said, what? They're beautiful. They have this great career. They have everything. He said, no, no matter how pretty they are, they never believe they're pretty enough, thin enough, no matter what. That kind of stuck with me. So if you don't think you're enough, either improve your abilities or let it go. Work on your strengths. Work on your strengths. We're always told to work on our weaknesses. Work on your strength.
Yeah.
Make your strengths stronger.
No,
And
that's
if you want to work on your weaknesses, okay, but you know what? I could run forever and I'm not going to be the fastest woman, even the fastest grandma, I don't think. So you know what? I'm going to work on my strengths. What are my strengths? My strengths are talking about my book, or helping people, or being around others, or communicating. Those are my
yeah.
strengths. Writing.
Yeah, no. It seems like, you have been a guiding light almost for the youths when you were in when you were teaching, and now you're doing you're in jails and you're in treatment centers. So it seems like, you're always on the go and you're always on the move, but you're always putting, everyone, in the forefront. You're bringing everyone together, trying to get them right, trying to, teach them, trying to, and we've had a great conversation here, and I'm having a great time talking to you. So I know you've also spent time speaking with people in jails and treatment centers. What did those conversations teach you about mindset, trauma, and second chances?
That's another excellent question, Jimmy. Well, you know what? You simply can't give up on yourself. A lot of the women in the jail, they would, let me give you an example. I had one gal, every time her mother would call her, they would argue. And so I told her, I said, you know what? Here's what you need to do. Just be quiet. Yes, your mother's going to discipline you. She's going to say things you don't want to hear about yourself. Stop defending yourself. You're sitting in this jail cell. Your mother's still calling you. You need to be quiet and listen and don't defend yourself and think about what she says to you. Well, 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, she goes, you will not believe my relationship with my mother is totally different.
Yeah.
We're getting along, blah, blah, blah. Hey, guess what? My number one piece of advice, shut your mouth. Be quiet. Just because you think it doesn't mean anybody needs to hear it, and stop being defensive. Listen, listen. That really helped her relationship when she stopped being defensive and stopped always trying to defend herself from her mother. Plus, the social workers were going to take her children away. And they, because the children were living with the mother, and I guess this woman at the time, she's engaged in some really bad behaviors. And then she came back to me, I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, and she said that, we had a meeting with CPR, and they're no longer gonna take my children away. So, when I come back, I'm gonna be able to be with my children and continue. And then I saw her after she got out, and she was really doing well, and she was thriving, she was really doing good, she had a job, she was just doing everything right, and she and her mother were getting along, her children were happy. It was just, you know what? And that's just what I said, "Do the right thing today." Just
Yeah.
worry about doing the right thing
Well,
today.
that's awesome where you had that conversation, that breakthrough with her, where she actually was able to take your advice and listen. And, her life essentially got better from there, even though she's behind bars and incarcerated, but her relationship changed with her mother. And then they didn't take her children. And then she gets out and she's thriving and living a successful life. So that's awesome. Those are the stories that people don't get to hear every day, that people like you, Martha, that are, changing the world one person at a time.
You too, Jimmy, with your show. No,
Appreciate
and I want to tell everyone the past does not equal the future if you won't let it. So just no matter what happened yesterday does not have to equal tomorrow. And one of the big things I'm going to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous is because of their experience, they can help others because they've been through and done the things that most of us think are so terrible and they shouldn't do. They can help others because other people are so ashamed and they feel like I'm the only person that has done this, blah, blah, blah. I'm rotten. I'm horrible. And then they meet other people like, whoa, you did that too, and blah, blah. And, oh, well, then maybe I can go on. Yes, I'm not going to do it again. There's one young man that came into the program, and one day he was talking about, he was telling someone, well, I'm a good person, blah, blah, blah. And his sponsor said, no, you're not. You were a con man. You're a liar. He goes, but you're getting better. And what was the point of that? The point of that is, he did a lot of things to survive because he came into the program and he was like 17 or 18. He was homeless. He had to do a lot of things to survive. But he didn't have to do those anymore.
Yeah.
And he had someone to guide him and to change him. So the past does not have to equal the future. And this young man has, in the years that I think 12 years he's stopped drinking, he is an absolute leader. He has helped so many people. And that's the same with all of us. The past does not equal the future. You can change at any point.
Yeah. And your past doesn't define you. Yeah.
That's right.
A lot of people dwell on the past and live in the past. And I've been one that's done it myself, beat myself up over the past and things that, are no longer in my life that I can't control that, you think back on, but you can't beat yourself up over because it's over and done with. So, and you learn from your past, you grow from your past. So what do you think children need today that they're not getting enough of? Not from
Attention.
society, but from adults at home.
A positive attention, but real, not just a lot of times we praise people. Oh, you're good. That's good. No, kids don't want to hear that. They want to hear, I like the way you put away the toys. It's so neat and organized. I like how you talk to so and so. You're friendly and you're open. I appreciate, this, not just and don't tell children they're the best or you're the prettiest, you're whatever, because they all know that's fake. And let me give you an example. I was substituting one day and a little kid came to me. I was like second grade, first grade. And this little kid came up to me and he said, my teacher's a liar.
Yeah.
What? And he goes, she told me I made a good B, and I know it wasn't a good B. See, and where the teacher's mistake was is she said that's good rather than saying, well, I can tell that's a B. I can see that, you've got a nice straight line and the circle's good. So describe what you see rather than giving a qualifier. That's good, that's bad, whatever. And that helps children a whole lot more. So when you just say, oh yeah, you're good, you're a good girl. Be a good boy, be a good girl. What the heck's that mean?
Yeah,
What does that
exactly.
mean?
Yeah. So we're going to go now to the last set of questions. So it's going to be tools, healing, and hope.
Okay.
So what's one simple daily practice any parent can start with right now that will shift the energy in their home?
Gratitude,
Yeah.
right away. Gratitude. I don't care how bad things are, you have things to be grateful for. So if you have a car and it stops, be grateful because a car that won't stop could cause a lot of problems.
Yeah,
Car
I
that the
think a lot
brakes
of
are
times
bad.
we often
So
take that for granted. You don't think of the small things, a car, you know, lunch, on the table, dinner on the table, roof over our head, You come in, you flick the lights on. We have lights, we have hot water, small little
Very good.
things, that we're never gracious for, grateful for. So how
Exactly.
can parents repair trust or communication when things have already become tense or disconnected?
Boy, that's a really good question. Well, you need to parent, you need to start behaving dependable. You need to start being a dependable person. So whatever it is, you need to change. And you know what? It takes people a long time to begin to trust you again. So you're going to have to spend a lot of time developing that trust, and don't think that people are just going to turn around and suddenly accept you now and believe what you say. And I have an example from that. There was a man who had stopped drinking 9 months before, and they were going to go to a wedding. And I guess weddings is when he would really make a fool of himself. And the parents, the family, the children, and the wife said, "Oh my goodness, are you sure you're ready to go to a wedding?" And he came to a meeting and he said, "It's been 9 months and my family still doesn't trust me. Please,
Yeah.
how many years did you drink? How many times did you say you weren't going to do something and you did it, and you made a fool of yourself and you caused the family anguish?" 9 months is a drop in the bucket. For some people, it's been years. One man said he would run out. He would always say, "I'm going to Taco Bell," and then he wouldn't show up for days. So after he sobered up, he can't ever say, "I'm going to Taco Bell."
Well, exactly. Yeah, so true.
He said he'd been
So true.
sober 20 years, and the family still would get upset.
So is healing yourself a requirement for raising responsible children, or can parents and kids heal together?
Oh yeah, well, they're going to have to heal together.
Yeah.
They're going to have to heal together. But if you aren't willing to heal, then everybody else is still going to be running around in your mess. And you know what? Alcoholics and addicts are tornadoes. We destroy all around us, and most of the time we don't even realize what happened because usually we're in blackouts or we're high.
We're
So
high, yeah.
and
Yes.
then the family comes and says, "Well, you said this to me, you said that, or you did this, oh well, it couldn't have been that bad." Because we technically really weren't there, were we? Our mind wasn't.
That weren't present. So two more questions. What does a genuinely healthy home look like to you? Not perfect, but healthy.
Gosh, man, Jimmy, you got some really good questions here. Well, you know what? People feel accepted, and they know when they make a mistake, nobody's going to hit them. Nobody's going to be sarcastic or snotty to them. Nobody's going to make snide comments. They're going to help them when they make mistakes. So that's what a healthy home looks like. Yes, of course, it's not perfect, but you know that you're not going to be attacked or hurt verbally or physically
Physically.
because of a mistake. You're not going to live in fear. You can go home and know that's your sanctuary, because home is supposed to be our sanctuary.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Home's supposed to be a safe place where we can be ourselves and where we can,
Mhm.
for fear of any, retribution or any attack, whether it's physical, mental, emotional abuse. Unfortunately, there are kids that their home isn't a safe
Right.
space, and that's tough. So, and then the last question, what gives you hope about the next generation of children and the parents raising?
Well, you know what? Every day there's hope. So there are loving parents. People love their children. Most parents love their children and want to do what's best for them. And a lot of times they just don't know what's best. Just like my husband and I didn't know what was best. We thought that not saying no was what was best, and we were wrong.
Yeah.
So, as long as when you learn better, you do better, it's all going to work out.
So before we close, are there any, you can find Martha's book, Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children on Amazon. And any final words for anyone that's battling, addiction, anyone that's battling some tough kids at home, any encouraging words you can give those out there that are going through it right now?
There's always an answer, and you can find it.
Yeah.
Just look. Just look. And I really recommend, if you have addiction problems and you know that you have these problems, you get some help now. I know people who've been to rehab 33 times, 40 times, but finally, the 33rd time stuck, the 10th time stuck, whatever. So you just don't give up.
Never give up.
That's really it, Jimmy. Never quit.
Yeah, never. So Martha, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. What you shared today wasn't just knowledge. It was soul work. You brought honesty, clarity, and compassion into a world that desperately needs it. You reminded us that raising children is not about control, fear, or perfection. It's about reflection, presence, and love. It's about understanding that we shape our homes with the same beliefs we carry inside ourselves. You reminded parents out there who feel tired, overwhelmed, unseen, or unsure that they still matter, that their influence is powerful, that healing is possible, and that responsibility is not something we force onto a child. It's something we live, breathe, and model. To everyone listening, I hope today touched you the way it touched me. I hope something Martha said broke through a wall you didn't know you still had up. I hope it gave you comfort, a new perspective, or even the courage to say, I can try again. I can be better. I can raise my children with love instead of fear. Remember this, your home can change. Your relationships can heal. Your story is still being written. And no matter what yesterday looked like, today is a new chance to love deeper, speak softer, listen closer, and lead with a heart that wants what's best, not just what's easiest. Martha, thank you for your strength, your kindness, your wisdom, and the work you continue to pour into this world. You are making a difference, one family, one parent, one child at a time. And to all of you, thank you for being part of this journey with me and Martha today. Thank you for listening, for growing, for showing up for ourselves and the people you love. This podcast is more than words. It's a community of souls trying to heal and do better. And I'm grateful every day that I get to walk this path with you. Until next time, stay blessed, stay present, stay grounded, and as always, stay true to who you are. You matter. Your voice matters. Your love matters. Thank you, Martha.
Thanks, Jimmy. It's been a wonderful experience. You're a great, great host.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you can find Martha's book on Amazon. Yes, you can raise happy, responsible children. And she's shaping the world still to this day after teaching all these years. She's in the jails. She's at recovery centers, and she's just really doing a hell of a job. And we appreciate it here from Uncle Jimmy's podcast to you, from the bottom of my heart to yours. Thank you. And I appreciate everything that you're doing, Martha.
Thanks. You too.
Till we meet again. Peace and love. Peace and love. Uncle Jimmy out.